gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. There's a masterpiece, the colors so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Align your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet. Yeah, you gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. Vision masterpiece, the colors so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Design your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet.
Peace, peace, peace. What's up? What's good? What's happening? This is Coach Bay, and welcome back to another episode of Design Your Life, where we bring you outstanding, amazing individuals that have crafted a beautiful life. And I firmly believe that the greatest gift that you could ever give yourself is a design life, a life that you actually craft around your dreams, your passions, your aspirations, and your talents. And I believe that it's much easier to feel confident in your ability to do that when you see other people who have done it. And today we have another outstanding guest, someone I have history with. I haven't spoken to my friend in a long time, and I am so excited to have her on. And she is outstanding, but she's also a mother. She's an MBA from Temple University. She's an athlete, an award winning executive, and motivational speaker. She is an author, a poet, an avid community volunteer. She's the CEO of the Franz Experience. I consider her a superhero, aka a supershero that was bumped on course. My friend, the amazing Franz Weightman.
Wow.
Franz.
What did I say? Thank you. I'm truly humbled and I appreciate the amazing introduction.
You
That
deserve
was
it.
wonderful. I really appreciate it. When you sum it up like that, you don't think about that stuff every day, It's
Yeah, no, you deserve it. That is a part of who you are. So I am extremely happy to have you here with me. Appreciate your time, and we're going to jump right into it. It's been a
wonderful.
while, so let's catch up. So what I want to do is I want to start from the beginning. I
Hmm.
want you to take us back. I know you, but I want you to take us back and to where it all began. So where were you born? Where were you raised? What did it look like, smell like, feel like when you were growing up?
Okay. Well, I'm a native of Philadelphia. I'm now on the West Coast, and I grew up in Germantown area, and that's not too far from Chestnut Hill in North Philly. Um, Growing up on the playground is where I spent most of my days, playing basketball, and proving myself at that time as a young girl that I could play basketball. I had a lot of stuff going on at home, which I'm going to go to when I was 13, when I had probably the most traumatic experience, or the start of a traumatic experience in my life, where I lost my father. He was murdered when I was 13. That was
Mhm.
actually right before starting high school. At ENS, Engineering and Science, all of our alum out there, where we first met at ENS. And that was probably the start of some of the most challenging experiences that I've had. But I noticed that I was a survivor when I survived that, and had some challenges through school emotionally. However, I didn't let it affect my grades. I don't think that was an
Mhm.
option at ENS. We all had to keep up our grades there.
No,
Um,
for sure. Now,
so it just,
before we go to ENS though, before we go
Mhm,
to ENS, I just want to know, like, when you were a kid, kind of
mhm.
like, what was that environment like for you? That's one thing, but I also would like to know, like, when you were a kid, what did your parents do as well?
Okay, so my father was a chemist,
Hmm.
and my mother, she was doing a lot at home, and then she decided later on that she wanted to be a truck driver. So she actually
Okay.
went to school. She was a truck driver, and she also did. She was a CEO for a period of time. But I lived in an environment that was, let's say, what a lot of us have experienced. I went through. There was domestic violence a lot in the home,
Mm.
So it didn't feel like a very safe environment. However, I had friends that probably would spend a lot of time with them, but I also had my sports. I did run track, did gymnastics. I did a lot of stuff outside of the home,
Mm.
but a lot of it was, we did have fun times in the home. Of course, my parents were into music a lot. And, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. I actually lived with my grandfather probably close towards my junior and senior year in high school
Mm.
when my mom moved to Virginia. And this was after my father passed away. So I think I grew up in a household where there was a lot of drama, a lot of just what some would call just survival, feeling like a survivor as a child and not sure if you're going to survive,
Mm.
because of the trauma and the drama that was going on around and the violence that's going on around. And I think a part of that helped craft who I am. That's a non-negotiable. Um,
Mm.
so I'm not a believer in violence. I am a believer in protecting yourself. However, I knew from day one I didn't want any type of relationship that involved any type of abuse, and
Yeah.
whether or not it was physical or verbal, and I steered clear of that, which also made me believe that I wanted a family, a loving family at a young age.
Mm.
Even besides academia, that was something that I desired. I wanted people to love, So, when I was young, I was always having this giving nature. So, I remember many times, volunteering for different events, Special Olympics. I was always a giver. That was something about me that I remember that there were times like we had events, and if there was a table and it was all this stuff left over, I just remember saying, can I bring my sister soda, or can I also bring my brother soda? Can I give my mom or give somebody, my friend, some of this stuff? So I was always giving people things, and I wasn't afraid to ask. I was always
Yeah.
very humble in my asks, and they were for good reasons. So that was something about me that it never changed. And most times you could find me on a basketball court, learning how to tap boards, and doing that nowadays, like the flick of a
No,
finger.
don't.
It took me a while to kind of get that and palm a
Yeah, well, you had to have some bounce to get up there and tap the backboard. You had to have a
had some
little bounce.
hops.
So one other thing about when you were a kid, did you have any, I know that there was drama in the house, and even, in those younger years, did you have dreams or any specific goals, or did that stuff come later on in life? And and what I'm getting at is, did you have anything that you were just loving doing, things that you enjoyed every single day, like any other kid? But did you have any like specific goals, any dreams that you were in love with when you were a kid, or did that come later on?
I think that came later on. I felt that, growing up the way I did, I don't think it felt like a lot of time to think about anything but survival. How are you going to feel? What was happening when you got home?
Hmm.
But I did enjoy the activities, sports, basketball. And I think probably at the time I thought about, playing basketball was more like, I want to play maybe for college, right? Or high school,
Hmm.
something like that. But I also did cheerleading. So it was like, you do so many different things and you think about doing that professionally. But at that time, I think it was more around high school and some college where I started to really think about what it was that I wanted to do. And a lot of that evolved around my family and,
Got
having
it.
children. And um, I went to Millersville, started out in Millersville. I didn't finish traditionally at Millersville, but, pulled all the classes together and,
Hmm.
and moved forward from there. But I think at the time I really wanted to be a loving mom. I wanted what I didn't
You
have.
wanted a family.
I wanted a family. I
Yeah.
wanted
And that
people.
was early on that you decided that?
I
That was
did.
early on,
I
even
wanted that.
back
That was
in
like
high
early
school?
college. Not that was more
Okay.
like, college life, being with the same person for many years, which we ended up getting married, now divorced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about
We'll talk about that. But
but
I have one more question about high school. I have
yeah,
one more question about high school.
sure.
So in high school, we're trying to figure out who we are a lot of times when we're in high school. So who would you say, like, who were you in high school? Were you the shy
I was a
girl? Were you the
cheerleader.
extrovert? Say it again.
I was a cheerleader in high school. What
Okay.
you
All
talking
right.
about? Like
I know, but the people don't know. I
so
know.
I was torn between basketball and cheerleading, and
Yeah.
you couldn't do cheerleading on the streets. You know what I mean? So I would
Right.
always say, and this is something that I think a lot of people they've learned now, but I advocate about reaching out to people to kind of get some guidance, because I
Mm.
probably could have had a scholarship playing at school somewhere at college,
Yeah.
but I said, oh, well, what I can do is I can be a cheerleader in school and go home and play basketball. Knowing what I know now about student athletes and sports, I
Hmm.
could have probably, played basketball in high school, maybe gotten some scholarship or something in that line for college. And who knows, I may have been in a WNBA, at the
Hey, who
time.
knows?
You just never know, right? But that was more my thing. I was a big cheerleader. I was a
Hmm.
big giver, jump rope. I think a lot of it was focusing on academia
Hmm.
and whatever was also, you know, going on in the aftermath of the loss of my father. So,
Yeah.
trying to have a normal, what someone would say, high school life or child
So that
life.
was a tough time, obviously, because you were 13, right?
Yeah.
You were 13, so that is eighth grade going into ninth grade?
Yeah. Right before I started high school. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, right at the beginning of, an exciting time for many, when you talk about entering high school, you're going through this traumatic thing, losing your father, which, my heart goes out to you because I couldn't even imagine, I don't necessarily know the dynamic of your relationship, but just to lose your father going into that next transition is tough. So I guess the next natural question for me is how did you bounce back from that? How did you get through that time? Because that's right at the beginning of high school.
Yeah. So at that time I was staying with my grandfather, and
Mm-hmm.
we talked a lot, and rest his soul. A lot of times, he would just talk for hours. We would talk for hours. And it was challenging. I think I had some anger in me, of why, um,
Yeah.
why couldn't I have like a normal child life, and I felt like, I guess that's why I'm a big kid now, I like to have fun. I like everything isn't so serious. And
Yeah.
um, I felt that, it was challenging because, I have friends. I had a lot of friends that I think, kept me going, and
Mm-hmm.
activities. I stayed busy. Uh,
Yeah.
we had a lot of homework, not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time for lollygagging or, thinking outside of that. And basketball was my outlet, and my
Yeah.
friends, I would say. A lot of that was probably the biggest focus at the time. And then when it was time to really get serious, graduating, you have prom and you have all these little things that bring you some joy, in your
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
over time, it gets easier. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then you have your moments where you feel like you're right back at that day, so there's
Yeah.
therapy as well. And when you're a kid, nobody wants to hear a therapy. Like, you just want to sit there and be like, okay, I'm gonna want to talk to a stranger. you know
Right.
I don't know who they are, what they're about, or like, there's nothing wrong with me. Why am I here?
Right.
There was, therapy that we had to go through. um at the time, I can't say if it helped. I think my friends helped me more than and activities helped me more than that. But who's to really say, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's I think it's a good point, and just in terms of the therapy part of it, because in our community, there's a lot of things that are frowned on. Talking to people about our emotions, being vulnerable. Me as a man, I mean, specifically as a man, but just in our community in general, even things as straightforward as going to the doctor. So I don't want to ever minimize the importance and the impact of therapy.
Sure.
I mean, and as a kid, when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, you have no idea what's going on. You're just trying to figure out what life is all about. And we went to high school basically together, so I know what the dynamic in the city was. It was dangerous everywhere. So I think it's important for young men, young women, doesn't really matter what age it is to embrace the idea of just opening up to someone, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your friends or whomever it may be, but just not bottling that stuff up, because that can be harmful in itself.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot easier as an adult to share that. Well, me, as you'll learn as we talk further, that I share my vulnerabilities, and it really doesn't matter it's who I am. I'm going to be who I am, no matter what.
Yeah.
So I can share, again, I'm all about people healing. I'm a big advocate of that. And so me sharing now, like, okay, I went to therapy, but a lot of times then people, you wasn't hearing that word. Nobody was repeating the word
No.
therapy. No,
No.
what physical, maybe physical therapy with sports, you can yell that out, but not really, because nobody wants to know about an injury. But
Right.
um, it was, I would say, for me, I always felt that God, like, we didn't go to church a lot. I would go with my grandmom. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I learned early on, church and God was in here with me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe he pulled me out of so many different scenarios. Not just that, as we'll talk further, other life's experiences, um,
Yeah.
which I've been, pulled from. And I will say that, I'm glad I went to engineering and science, because
Mm-hmm.
I got to experience the diversity. And when I say diversity, the different emotions, the different levels of intellect from our classmates and personalities. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
it helped me to not stay closed minded when it comes to different cultures and experiences. And you'll find that a lot of people are very similar when you think about it at the end of the day,
Yeah.
especially when it comes down to, who was that? Mr. McClay, professors, that always tells you you're going to fail, fail Zims, oh my gosh, I can remember that teacher, but we all, at the end of the day, still had to pass in that work.
Right. Right.
So,
Right. Right.
well, we all had a common interest of making sure that we did our best in class. So I think that was a big factor for me in high school, and making sure that I didn't, I wanted to be a straight A student, so
Right.
having, great grades were very important to me as a person, no matter what. So,
No, for sure, for sure. So, kind of transitioning out of high school, I know you talked a little bit about Millersville. So, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that time, but I'm curious, and this isn't something I've asked before, but I'm actually curious. Why? Why did you go to college?
so I went to college because I wanted academia. My father was a chemist, and
Okay.
so I wanted to be a chemist. I remember we had a 3-story home, and at that top level floor, had all these books and these molecules, and we would put them all together and make all these different projects. And love the periodic table. So I was a big science person, science and math. And
Mm,
I said I want to be a chemist, and so my original major was biology and
okay.
chemistry. But your first year, you got to take certain classes, and so I want to say the dean of the science department, of biology department, and he was one of my professors, and I had a very bad experience with him. So me being I have a balance, but a lot of us were very analytical, and you had to be very specific about asks and things. And so I remember a couple times in lecture, I'll raise my hand, but I pointed out some things and it didn't look too good because, it wasn't like I was trying to show up a professor. I was really trying to dive into, okay, which answer do you really want,
But
and
he felt some kind of way.
he felt some kind of way.
Right.
And from that point on, we had a difficult relationship, to the point where I switched my major to actuarial sciences, which was math-based, based off of economics and facts and studies. But, and then at that point, I always knew that I wanted a career, but I wanted family as well. I was a believer that you can have both. And, I just, once I, got pregnant with my daughter, everything kind of stopped at that point in time. And
was this around that same time? Like are we still in Millersville?
Yes, I'd switched majors like after a couple years there, past my sophomore year. And once this happened, I came out, and I had my own apartment and everything, and I came back to Philadelphia. First child, it was like, what's that? I'm all the way out in Lancaster, out there with the geese over there.
Right.
Like, what kind of support? And I don't know anything about being a mom, like having a baby. Yeah. So I came back and started a family. And so from there, but I always knew that I had this quality, this leadership quality. And at that point in time, I wanted to be I wanted to have my own hair shop, because I used to always like do my own hair. You can see.
I see.
But I always wanted to do that. And I did it at home until eventually, I became a color specialist. I used to do a lot of weddings. I used to go to hospitals and volunteer and cut like the people's hair who weren't able to, leave out the hospital. They were sick,
So wait, a color specialist, what is that?
So it's a Redken color specialist. Redken was a brand of color. And so I had to learn and study how to mix colors. So how to color, or, individuals' hairs, no matter if it was gray, if it was, black, and they wanted to go kind of bleach blonde as best you can do without damaging as much as possible the hair, how to highlight the hair, how to make it look natural, foil highlights. So our cosmetologists out there, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is
because clearly Open has no idea.
So it's art. It's literally like taking but knowing what you're doing. So, if someone they come in with green hair, it's knowing how to do a sample. It's chemistry, basically.
Okay. So we started in chemistry, but we're still in chemistry.
Yes. Yes. How to mix color and peroxides, percentages, how much, and how to apply it, so to get a proper even look. But so I started into that field, and then I ended up becoming a manager. And then, I went on to getting my teacher's license for cosmetology so I can teach it. And no matter what I stepped into, I always wanted to be at that higher level of it. So not just the cosmetologist, I wanted to be the manager. I wanted to be the leader of it. I wanted to, excel in that space. And at that time, we found out we were having a second child. And unfortunately, 5 months in, I lost the baby. So it was very hard. Had a medical, it was an emergency. And so I never went back to the hair care piece of it because I was carrying so big, like people literally thought I was having twins. Everyone
Mm.
was like, when's the baby due? All these things. And
Yeah.
it was all of a sudden I have nothing, like there's nothing. I couldn't even walk for times, for a long period of time, kind of had to get carried to different places. Home,
Yeah.
it was devastating. And I was told, this wouldn't happen again. I was told that I wasn't able to have any more children, after that, that they
Hmm.
took risk. And, a couple of years later, ended up being able to have my son, Marcus, who is actually graduating from University of Penn this May. So I'm
All
very
right.
excited. So,
Okay, Mark.
Marcus, yeah.
Marcus.
So I know that,
Congratulations.
thank you. I know all babies are miracles,
Yeah.
but this one, it was very risky for both of us.
Hmm.
And, at that time, that's when I started in banking and finance. And that's when I started going back and doing all my classes and finishing up. So, you know, um, in school. And so,
So
um,
what was that transition like? Because I mean, you went, chemistry, and then we're still in chemistry to a certain degree, but you're in the hair space,
mhm.
cosmetology, and then what made you transition to finance?
So again, I always like numbers, math,
Mm.
and actuarial sciences was what I was declared in before I left Millersville. And
Okay.
so I had a friend, and I'm a true believer in life's course and how it's presented to you. And I used to do their family's hair, but they knew my background. They knew about my school, my education. They knew I was pretty intelligent. And there was an opportunity that was opening up at the bank. This was before I knew I was, carrying my son. And
Okay.
so I applied and I said, okay, I couldn't go back to I probably could have gone back to cosmetology because at that point in time, that was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to do weddings and makeup and all these things and make people feel great, um, and so basically, I did that at home. Like I did mine, I did family. My daughter had
Hmm.
head hair, so I was full. I was very entertained in that space. And so, when I got into finance, I felt like I was headed back in the right direction. I was dealing with numbers. I was doing a lot of lending. Um, at the time, I was, people were very happy because I was able to give them a mortgage for their first home. And
Mm.
I still remember, going to one of the closings for a couple of my customers and giving them like a nice housewarming gift. And, I still talk to them, and it's just great. They have children now. And just to know that was a part of that, it felt
Yeah.
great. So, I went through lending courses, expert lend. I went through so much in finance, a lot of classes, a lot of schooling in regards to business.
Hmm.
And throughout that time while I was doing that, we had started a business at home, a
Mm.
family business, and we had a store. It wasn't far from Morton train station, and we had a lot of produce. We did a lot of cooking, and I remember, still being a manager at the bank, VP in finance, and I'm down South Philly at like 4 in the morning picking out A grade fruit because after, and I got my suit in the car. Like, I
Right.
mean, we were really, really busy and putting in that kind of time that needed to be put into if you have a business and a career at the same time, you got all these things
Yeah.
that you're juggling. And we did it. It was hard work, but that was something I did as well.
And this was you and your husband who was
Yes,
the.
at the time,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
All right.
And our kids, I mean, they were very involved, but not 4 in the morning. For
Right.
them,
Right.
we would drive down to the market, and I'm gonna say it was like Southwest Philly. Well,
Mm.
trucks bringing all the fruit and everything and vegetables,
Yeah.
and also like we were cooking. doing a lot of meals, prepping, and greens,
What was
whatever.
that? What was
Protein.
that process? I'm curious now. What was that process like? Just starting a store?
So
Because
that
it was located where? Where was it located?
it was in Morton,
Okay.
PA. So
Okay.
there was a building that my ex, well, Maurice, he actually had the building for
Hmm.
for business for his insurance. He rented it.
Okay.
And so then we got the concept of doing a storefront, you know, um, and we made protein shakes. This is before Wawa was doing all of this, the
Right.
shakes, protein shakes, the smoothies, popcorn, ice cream, gelatis. We had all this stuff, produce,
Okay.
milk, eggs. I mean, we had a
Y'all had
whole
produce
whole
junction going on.
a whole store. Yes. You could either buy meals or you could it's just taking me back. You could buy a meal or you can buy fruits and vegetables to cook yourself. But it,
Okay.
went on for a few years and then
Yeah.
decided that, financially it wasn't cost effective
Yeah.
for maintaining that. And so we dissolved that, and I was still in banking. I was still, managing. And a lot of my kids, they were very heavily, my daughter was into music a lot and my son was into sports, and so that took up a lot of our time. We were
Mhm.
very involved in what it is that they wanted to do, and so we put a lot of effort into making sure that they had what they needed and what they wanted, from
Mhm.
what we felt was what they wanted to do, and from that standpoint. And so it kept us very busy. um, and eventually I decided, well into my career, this is, the kids are older, and I said, I want to go back to school, and got an opportunity to go to apply to Temple Fox School of Business. I felt like that was probably the most powerful that I felt at that point in time. Again, I'm fully into my career,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm going back to school for an
Mhm.
accelerated program, 16 months,
Mhm.
and I'm not stopping my career. I still have goals and things and a team I need to lead and all these things going on. And how am I going to juggle that and a family? Well, I
Right.
was able to. I will say that I was appreciative of the support while I was going through that. But it was like
Mhm.
1 week in a month we had to dedicate to being away from home. And that's how I learned about Instacart and all these things, because, stuff didn't stop. You still had to make sure you had groceries. You still had to make sure you
Right.
had all these things. And then, and my global immersion was in South Africa. And
Okay. Talking about
that's
that.
so that's when I started. I got the travel bug. I was just amazed. I was in love. I was in love with travel. I was
Mhm.
in love with Africa. I was in love with the journey, everything about it. And I will say, at the time of my MBA class, I was the only African American woman there. And
Mm.
most of my career, I was probably the only African American woman in leadership as well. And
Yeah.
so there was a lot on your shoulders, whether or not, it was directly directed towards you, but it was expected. There was a lot of expectations. And of course, I have to present myself in a manner that is, you know, not just acceptable to others, but acceptable to myself. I was a
Right.
believer in you are your brand. And so, and this was before I had the Franz experience,
Right. Right.
presentation of myself. What did I want to be received? How did I want to be received,
Yeah.
as a woman, as an executive, um, in this world? And so there were pressures I put upon myself, as well as, everyone else watching. Everything
Yeah.
was watching. So there's a lot more diversity now. However, then it was.
It wasn't. You were pioneer at that point. You're pretty much
Yeah.
a pioneer. So you said Africa. What part of Africa? I'm curious.
So we were in Cape Town and Johannesburg,
Okay.
and I made some good connections. So one person that I feel they were a mentor with, they're a very good friend across the pond now. The teacher Nyati, who I met, he was actually in one of our um, classes, one of our courses, and we had to learn about him. And I thought he was fascinating. And I'm a big connector. I talk to people all the time.
Yeah.
And I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and I was just his case study. It was just phenomenal. And then
Mhm.
when I found out that we were going to South Africa, I was just elated. I couldn't wait to meet him. And we're getting there, and he's presenting to us, and I see him for the first time, and we hug, we embrace each other, and everyone's looking like, well, how she know him? And so that was actually a big talk in the school. It's about connecting, about networking. And,
Yeah.
I actually pitched a business at that time. I literally had a couple of minutes and I pitched my business to him. This was about AI. I had an idea concept based around augmented reality and science and
Okay.
technology, STEM. And I pitched it to him really fast. And while everyone's out visiting penguins, I'm studying to present my idea concept
Yeah.
to one of the largest telecommunications providers in the world. And
Right.
I was nervous, but I felt that it was a part of my path.
Yeah.
And so I pitched it, and he says, okay, you know what? I'll give you X amount of time. And so I set the time, we set the time, and we had our meeting, and I pitched the business, and he wanted to work with me. There were some things, of course, we had to work out. So we were communicating back and forth from Africa. And
Mhm.
around that time I was getting ready. I was working on some numbers and things, these small things. And at the time, AI, in this space, augmented reality was where I was, not virtual reality. And
Okay.
Boeing, the airline, used a lot of the AI, but not from the, I wanted to kind of pull it into the consumer space, not so much B2B, business to business. And there wasn't much data, numbers to kind of gather. It was just kind of so new in this particular idea concept. Um, and so, we were working together, and everything looked great. I actually ended up leaving my the finance space at the time, and
Mhm.
I felt very confident about this next business venture. I had people approach me about actually purchasing the concept and the idea of what I wanted to do, but was advised to not do that, to
Finesse.
look to
Finesse.
doing correct. And so, long story short, as I'm doing all this, we're in a car accident.
Mm.
And my son was finishing up high school, and he was going to go to Episcopal Academy. He was just about to start his freshman year at EA in Newtown.
Now, just you when you said we, who was in the car
So
with you?
in the car, my husband at the time was in the car, and my son was in the back. So now
Mhm.
my son, he had just come from practice, and so his seat was all the way pushed back, and so he was laying flat in the back. And
Mm.
I was this was a couple days after my birthday. I was a passenger in the passenger seat. The day before, I think it was my birthday, I dropped my phone, it broke. So I was literally on my new phone programming and trying to get everything and all the data, and hadn't fully gotten everything transitioned over. And so my husband at the time, he was in the driver's seat, and we were sitting at a red light. So someone comes up and plows into the back of us,
Mm.
and all the electronics of the car gets shut off. We're pushed out into the intersection, and I was the one who suffered the most from it. My seatbelt was on, but I was not paying attention to what was behind me or any cars. I'm not holding anything except for the phone, and I'm just sitting there looking down at it. And when we got hit, so I jerked my body, jerked forward really hard, and my husband at the time, he braced me, like grabs me, and then our real hard jerked back. So it was like a rag doll, and I
Yeah.
hit my head on the back, and I had suffered from post concussion syndrome. So it happened inside, no external bruises, but I had the fluid in my brain shifted, and
Mm-hmm.
skull touched the front of my head and the back. So the fluid shifted multiple times in my brain. And that was the start of my bumped on course journey. And so I had suffered post concussion syndrome. I was dealing with memory loss. I was dealing
Mm-hmm.
with pain of not knowing what was kind of going on around me.
Yeah.
Went to the hospital, and I hadn't even remembered that I injured my leg at the time trying to brace myself, and I ended up eventually having to have surgery. Had to go see a neurologist. I had to learn how to speak again. I was actually training for a full marathon with one of my neighbors at the time, and so I was feeling like I was at the top of my game.
Yeah.
I just just finished my classes in my EMBA. I'm feeling very strong, very confident, and you know,
And then all of a sudden.
all of a sudden everything was bumped.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why I named my first book Bumped. And
Yeah.
because literally I was bumped in an accident, and the bump is, the car bump. And so one of the best things I did was I asked my neurologist, I said, well, how will I know when I'm getting better? you know, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember. My short-term memory was not great. And
Yeah.
here you take this person that very outgoing, energetic, and you shut everything down. What do I do? What's
Mm-hmm.
next? And I struggled. I struggled with that. I literally, my friends, they would call me and check on me, and they were good to me because I would say, oh yeah, like we'll go outside, we'll go running. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
run anywhere, could barely walk straight.
Yeah.
And they would say, okay, yeah, just check in with the doctor first and let us know. I say, okay, but they never told me no. They never told me no, and it was probably one of the best things ever. It's like someone who's going through something, like they might know themselves that they can't do, but to tell them no, it's just like it all happened all over again. And
Yeah.
so I will say that was probably the start of my bumped on course, because at that point in time, um, I'm depleting money, I'm using money, I'm doing all these things because I'm injured. And
Right.
I eventually get back into finance, because
Mm-hmm.
I start to heal, but I go through concussion therapy, and all these different things, and then
And
eventually
what's this time frame looking like? Is
this
this
so this time frame is like close to, I want to say, so it was August, and then I want to say close to a few months, like 4 months or so.
and this is all around, is this 2015 or 16?
2016, like 2015, 16.
Okay.
16. August of 2016. Yeah.
August of 2016. Because 2016 was like it felt like a big year for you. I mean, you had a lot going on in
Mhm.
2016.
Yeah. I just, I finished probably one of the most challenging things, which was to step out of my comfort zone, go back to school,
Yeah.
get my executive MBA. My son's going to probably one of the top schools, high school. And,
Mm-hmm.
my daughter, she's well into her music, and, my career's going great.
Yeah.
I have these ideas and concepts, and that relationship over South Africa is going very well. and everything is stopped.
Yeah.
Just snap of a finger, a bump, a
Yeah,
bump.
well, they say nothing's promised, and I think it's extremely important to remember that nothing's promised, and to value the moments that we have, to keep things in perspective. So the interesting thing is that that bumped you onto a course that you've kind of carried and taken you to a different direction,
Yeah.
which is inspirational and motivational in many, many ways. So I don't know if you want to talk about, bumped on course and what that really means to you.
Okay, I'll share. So, actually, this is actually I'm redoing the book itself, Bumped, and working on that being put on Amazon. Actually, the other one was published, but I'm pulling that off the market and
Okay.
putting this new book on. And so during that time, I couldn't do any research. It was hard to do research. So, but when I asked my neurologist, what can I do? How will I know if I'm getting better? She said, write everything down. I wrote on napkins, I wrote on envelopes, whatever receipts. I put the date on them. She put the date on it because I
Hmm.
wasn't sure if I was going to remember. So this book actually came about from the notes, all the notes that I had taken, jotted in my phone, on envelopes, whatever it was, I had them. And
Yeah.
my children helped me put them together in order. And when I read the stuff, I cried because I couldn't remember.
Mm.
I didn't remember half the stuff. I didn't remember. And I was concerned. I was concerned if I was going to be okay, if I was going to regain my memory. Um, a lot of reflecting on myself. I said, wow, go back to school, get my executive MBA to forget it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Right.
um, and slowly things came back, but I also had my studies and work that I had learned, and I could go back to that. Um, but it took a long time. It took a long time to feel confident again, to be back in the public. Um, but I knew it was like, okay, I had to go back to work. I'm spending money, depleting money. I'm like, I need to go back to work.
Yeah.
And um, during this time, family life, the kids, everybody seemed great, but I wasn't really like where I thought I was really getting some support, some spousal support. It almost seemed like I wasn't at
Hmm.
some point in time through my healing. Um, the biggest thing was realizing that we were, having some troubles at home and things. And um, one day I was at work and I said, I'm having a problem memorizing or remembering codes, what's going on. And so
Hmm.
I scheduled an appointment with my neurologist. And I told my husband at the time that I needed to go to the doctor. I'm having some problems. So neurologically, he's like, what's going on here? All of a sudden I'm doing better. And now my memory, I can't remember. My short-term memory is messed up. So it's very scary.
Yeah.
And I told him that, I needed to go to the doctor. And where you would think that there was that support of like someone going in with you. And I just got dropped off.
Wow.
So there was some things that just me as a person, and not to try and judge, but what's important here. Here I'm
Yeah.
talking logical functioning, memory from an injury. I'm dealing with some injuries. I'm not this chipper, big time cheerleader and always lifting everybody else up. I actually needed some
Hmm.
help at that point in time. And so, a lot of my friends today was like, I don't know if that was support. I'm very optimistic. I was, grateful for any help that I had, and not
Right.
to be, negative, but what I learned was, from a lot of my friends, guy friends, like yourself, be like, oh, ooh, mm, that don't sound too good, So,
Right. Right.
um,
So
and
you
then
weren't getting the support that you felt like, even though, see, the thing, if you guys have not noticed, Fran has an energy, right? She's a giver. She has this big smile. And, I think it can be disheartening when you don't feel like especially as a giver, you're not giving to receive, but that's just naturally who you are, right? So when you don't receive it, specifically during a time like that, it can be disheartening, and I would imagine that things may have changed, kind of going forward a little bit.
yes, let's say that was probably the time to be respectful. Um, that was around a time where I guess I was weak, but I wasn't weak. I was weak physically from the trauma, the head trauma,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and building and rebuilding myself, my strengths. And so I think at that point in time, um, around about the same time, he had decided to entertain others.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna be we're being respectful.
We're gonna keep it
We're gonna.
respectful, but
Okay. All
you
right.
know,
So he
so
made his decision.
made decisions, and
Yeah.
so me knowing how precious life is,
Yeah.
I believe that you know there's a point of giving and being a giver,
Mm-hmm.
but when you start to disrespect yourself,
Mm-hmm.
those are some non-negotiables.
Yeah.
So there was a point where I said, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to allow anyone else to do it. And so that was the turn of the tide for me. And, it was when I became a single mom. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for parents with two parents and kids as it is. But
No, for sure.
know,
Listen, I know.
I was still, I was, at this point in time, I'm a single mom. I've got my own place. I got own bills. I got the kids. I got, all these things, tuition, school tuition,
Yeah.
um, you know, and I'm doing it. I'm doing it on my own. And I
Yeah.
remember I was like starting over. Like my stocks and everything were used and all this and depleted. And I literally started over with
Mm.
$9.53 left.
Wow.
I was in the green. When I moved, when I did all these things, and of course, you do settlement, all these things. But when I left, I was, I knew I was going to do better.
Yeah.
One, I had my peace. One, I knew I had a career. Um, and I was, nervous stepping out into the space of being single. It was like a sheep amongst the wolves until I found out I got my own teeth, you know, but it was something else to experience after being married for
Yeah.
plus years, and then
Right.
you're in this single space. And much respect to my single friends. I'm telling you, like, I love them to death, because it is a circle, it is a community, and you work
Yeah.
together on just being good friends, whether or not it was doing something and going out, whatever it was, you had a community of people that you
Mm-hmm.
could feel safe around, because there
Yeah.
was that.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I don't want to gloss over the importance of just loving yourself enough to make sure that you're happy,
yes.
right? I think sometimes we allow relationships and history, and even children to trump our happiness.
Mm.
And it's extremely, I mean, this podcast, this conversation in general is just about designing your life, from the standpoint, from an overall standpoint, and not just necessarily career, So, if your light is dim because of your natural light, and I consider Franz as having like a natural bubbly light. If that natural light is dim, I almost feel you talk about non-negotiable.
Mhm.
I feel like our natural light, which lights our life, I believe, it's non-negotiable to sit and watch that light go out,
Mhm.
And for a lot of different reasons, we allow those lights to go out. We call it things like loyalty and things like that. But ultimately, your happiness is extremely important. When we talk about just your not just your physical health, because we talked about a lot about physical health, but your emotional health
Yes.
is
Yeah.
is, is just as important. So, kudos to your happiness.
Mhm.
And it feels like we're going into a space where the light is coming back on, and we're getting closer to the Franz experience.
Yes, it is on. And I tell you what I learned through that time of and space of being single was my non-negotiables. I learned a lot about me. I sat um, for days, for months, alone, learning me.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're doing everything which you would do and do again. Um, but I had time to really learn about me, to really
Yeah.
love me, to spend time with me. And I mean, when I tell you, I presentation, I love presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Big on it. But I would get dressed. I'd go out by myself and have a lovely dinner, have my
Mm-hmm.
glass of wine, beautiful setting, experience. I was
Right.
starting to experience life,
Right. Okay.
loving my experiences. We go
There you
dance
go.
with my friends. I'm in the gym for hours. I'm running. Like, I felt that, not that, and don't get me wrong, because having a family, when I was married, when I had the children,
Mm-hmm.
I love my experiences. I don't regret a thing. I'm not someone who's, going to be bitter or anything like that, because I have some beautiful things to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
I have me, I have my growth, I have all these things.
Right.
When I was single, I started to really come into myself of what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted. And I had the time. My kids are grown at that point in time, the time to sit and think, what do I really want to do? What do I
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
And throughout this time, I was always a writer. I was always writing something down, um, whether or not it was how I felt, poetry. I was always writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll share with you, like, the one time when I have another novel that I'm working on, but it is taking some time. And I
Mm-hmm.
literally flew from my home in King of Prussia at the time when I was living there. I flew to North Carolina. I just picked a random spot and I
Okay.
flew there because I was facing myself. I was facing the traumas of what happened with my father because I was starting to write about it. And I didn't know what my energies would be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that energy in my home.
Did you have roots in North Carolina?
No, I picked a
Okay.
random spot.
Okay.
Actually, this was before my daughter lived in North Carolina, I think, or at the time, or she was thinking about North Carolina or something like that. But I didn't tell anybody, you know. And I took this time, and I was there for 3 days. I met a couple of
Mm-hmm.
nice people there, and I'm sitting, at the eatery, and I met a woman there, and I saw her was there writing a book, and I understood like why certain people was writers find solitude in certain locations and areas. So I kind
Mm-hmm.
of invited myself into this hotel, beautiful setting, but I was there to write. I was there to confront, and I was there for a few days. It took me up to the last day to address it, and I finally
Mm.
started to write. I was
About your
avoiding,
father.
yeah, I was avoiding,
Mm-hmm.
and so I addressed those things.
Mm-hmm.
And once I did, I started to feel better. I started to write that. And those things are in my novel that I'm working on now. That's actually why I'm republishing Bump, because it kind of goes into this whole space of being bumped on course. It's about healing, it's about addressing things. And So that was something that I started to do. I did a lot of writing, and throughout this course of time, these poems, things that would come to me, and I would just write them out.
Yeah.
They would just spill out of me, like, sweat out of your pores. They would just come out. And so I would write them down. And I just actually, and this was like a few years of
Hmm.
poems and thoughts, and me being vulnerable, me sharing my life, my experiences, and not just with loss, but with life. And I was very vulnerable, and actually just published my second book, which is called A Poet's Song, which is
Hmm.
this book here, book of poetry, some beautiful, beautiful things that are inside here, spaces for people to be inspired, to write their own feelings down. I'm a big believer in expression, and
Hmm.
people writing down or singing, whatever it takes, drawing, whatever it is, to heal. There's many forms of healing. So,
Right.
through this process, um, I'm doing all this writing. I'm single. I'm doing everything, and I'm feeling great. I'm like at the best shape of my life. I'm running marathons, and I'm feeling great. I'm working out. I've got some friends. I'm in my power
You got
about
your swagger back.
who I want in my space. And
Right.
I wasn't ignorant or anything like that. I was very open about where I was in my space,
Yeah.
but protective of it, and didn't negotiate about what I wanted and what I wanted to do. And I used to dance a lot, and or go out with friends. There's this spot, and this is funny. I'll share real quick, and we can kind of move on. But I used to go to this casino, and
Hmm.
we would dance a lot. And I used to tell my son, "I'm going to the casino. I'll be back later." And I never told him I didn't gamble, though. I think one day I realized, it's like, oh my gosh, he probably
You
thinks like
think
I'm a
I'm going?
compulsive gambler. Every weekend we would go, but it would be the neighbors, and we would come together. It was a DJ, music, we'd
Okay.
dance the night away, okay? And I love
Right.
to dance. And one day I was like, oh my, and this is again a couple years later, I'm finally telling him, oh my gosh, all those times I would go to the casino, I wasn't gambling, I was dancing, and my friends, we would meet up. That was a meetup spot, and it was safe, there's security, all this.
Right.
And this is around about the time that COVID came about.
Okay.
And, very stressful time. I
Yeah.
was, in leadership, still in finance. And I was what you call like an essential worker. And,
Hmm.
I'm still living my life. I'm, enjoying things. And at this point, it was probably one of the scariest moments, because
This is in still on the East Coast, or are we on the West
on the
Coast?
East Coast, this is still on
Okay.
the East Coast. And
Okay.
my son was in high school, and he was, you know, this is in his senior year, kind of transitioned from end of junior going into his finishing up his senior year.
Hmm.
And I mean, my main security was making sure he was safe.
Yeah.
And, it was very stressful time for me, because I'm out here. We don't really know much about COVID. We don't know what's going on. And now it's touching close to home. People that I know, they're passing away. It's all kinds of stuff that's going on. It's really a real thing.
Yeah.
And you don't know really how to be safe. I had a team of people I had to keep safe. And then I had to keep safe my son as well. When I come home, I had a whole process. And I have this whole thing with keeping stuff clean, like, and,
Hmm.
processes that I created, like mentally and emotionally, it took a toll, because
Hmm.
I didn't get to spend time with my son. I was afraid to touch him. I was
Mm.
afraid that maybe something was on me, a germ or something, and I would give it to him, and I don't want him to get sick. And, so there was a lot of that. He pretty much stayed in his room with his game. He was good. He was like, "Mom, I'm fine," but, you know,
Hmm.
and he's at an age that he doesn't care too much for mom tickling him anyway.
Right, right.
Stop, mom. So, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss seeing him and being in his space, even though he doesn't want me in his space. But
Right, right.
and that was very challenging. And at this time, I'm still feeling pretty good personally and emotionally, as far as myself goes, as far as self love and self care.
Right.
And then one day, um, I went out with some friends. This is like when COVID's kind of lifting.
2021.
Yeah, about that time, like night 2020. Yeah, about 2020,
Okay.
2021. Yeah. And my friends, I'm, visiting them, and they have a dog because I want to protect them as well. We unfortunately don't really talk much anymore, but they had a dog. It was an American bully, and I was almost killed by the dog. I was
Mm.
bald. I had a hole in my arm. I had 14 stitches. I had 8 puncture wounds. I ended up having to have knee surgery. I had to learn how to write again. I had
But so the dog just attacked you. Just you
so
guys were in the house, just out of the blue.
we're
Just
in the house. We're in the house. I kind of know the dog a little bit, not really, but enough that I felt comfortable. At least I thought I did, until he just lost it. Like, he was just kind of greeting me, and then all of a sudden, I mean, he just lost it. He jumped up, grabbed my arm, and just started ripping and tearing away at me, dragging me up under the
and where
table.
were they?
They were trying to get him off me, and took 3 of them and get him off me. But God, I mean, I'd never
Yeah.
screamed so loud in my life. I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, I'm literally trying to keep myself from being killed, um, by this dog. And I'm like literally drug up under this table, and I'm holding on for dear life. I ended up having to have knee surgery. I was in hospital for on and off for like at least 2 years.
Mm.
I had to learn how to write again. Went through PTSD around dogs. And it was crazy because I love animals. I love dogs. And then all of a sudden, I can't
Yeah.
even the smallest of dogs, like I just couldn't even be around them. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
was it was very bad, very bad. It had nerve damage, had, all kinds of things that occurred, that like people that would look at me today would not have thought that I had gone through anything like that. Growing
Yeah.
up, you go the long way home sometimes when you got this dog that's
Yeah.
kind of wild, and you're like, I'm
Yeah.
taking.
No, I mean, growing up, I didn't know too many people who had dogs as pets
Mhm.
as much as they were just like the security of the house.
Yeah,
My wife, she grew up with like dogs as like almost like extension of the family. But yeah, no, I mean the way that I grew up, way we grew up, you had a pit bull or a Rottweiler to protect the house, not necessarily as a companion.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, you would go the long way, even if it was a
Oh, wow.
gate, because
Yeah.
dogs can do what they want, at times.
When it comes time, yeah. So, I'm literally mulling over my life as I'm being just he would not let my arm go. And
Mm,
I'm saying, is this it? And I'm pleading, I'm screaming, Jesus, oh God, I'm literally I've never screamed so loud in my life, nor have I felt that kind of pain before in my life,
yeah.
of just being ripped and torn apart. And so, um, like I struggled with why me, and then I realized,
Hmm.
why not me. I was
Okay.
listening
Tell
to a
me more.
pastor. I was listening to a pastor one day that said that, we are not exempt,
Hmm.
and he wasn't speaking directly to me, but he was speaking to me. And we're not exempt from the winds, so why should we be exempt from anything else?
Mm.
That question, why, is a dangerous question to ask. Can completely make you go into a spiral of, you know, like, haven't I been through enough? And,
Mm-hmm.
um, or you can try your best to look at it and say, I want to come out of this. I'm not giving up. Prayers work. I mean, I had people who showed up and I had people who about faced and said, up, her energy
Mm.
is low and that's not where I want to be, you know,
Yeah.
and I had to forgive them because I said, I was a ball of energy. People love to be around me, and
Mm-hmm.
what I had to offer was that energy. Like, they just loved it, love it. Which, I mean, I can understand. I like having the energy. I like it around. I like having it around myself.
Yeah, but you're a human being at
But
the same
yeah,
time.
at the same time, and I realized again, you know, into my career, and I had my son. I couldn't open a water bottle. I couldn't do my
Mm-hmm.
hair. I asked him to one time curl it for me. He's so sweet. He he did it because he loved his mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget the help and support I got from him. I'll never forget my friends. Uh,
Yeah.
I have friends that literally sent me bottles of the Dove soap that had the squirt mechanism, because I
Okay.
couldn't hold any bar soap. I couldn't,
Right.
I mean, it became real. I couldn't open a
Yeah.
bottle of water. I couldn't open a bottle of water. I couldn't, certain faucets, depending on what, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
dry my,
You were starting over again, basically.
I was, yeah, again.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part was not really understanding what happened. And I think the biggest distrust was what happened with the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Why did that happen? Because I've been around him before. Like,
Yeah.
what triggered him to, wasn't any sudden moves or anything. Um like, and so I started to do more studying about a certain breed of dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard because where I would love animals and they would take to me, they would always want to be around me, and here I am, like, trying to go the other way, and trying not to show a fear where that doesn't help. And at the time I didn't have a fear. I had dogs all my life.
Mm.
And obviously I felt comfortable enough to be around this American bully lockjaw dog.
Right.
And I started researching and finding out more about, I had actually done a podcast myself on this, how to protect people and pets,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just the people that need protecting, but I also learned that some pets need protecting. This is outside of my case, but what I learned was there's some dogs that are very sensitive and nervous, and
Mm-hmm.
people are just readily reaching out to try and touch a dog, and it's like, maybe it's not safe, to do
Right.
that, making the dog nervous. Um, so it was like how to protect people and pets, and so I always try to look at things from both sides.
Yeah.
I never really, the reason why I didn't trust the animals at the time was because what I realized was it was an animal. But what happens
Mm-hmm.
when you can't control it? You can't
Yeah.
hold it. It outpowers. It does whatever it's going to do. It's an animal.
Yeah.
And so, whether a loving pet or not, it's, even though I love them, what does it matter if no one can stop it from attacking or anybody?
No,
So,
no, for sure.
so um, as I was healing, I still had the concept of all these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to another good friend of ours, and like, actually right before that, I had gone to Miami. One of my girlfriends, we would always go to Miami, but I had taken this trip to Miami more about business, about the Franz Experience is what I wanted to start, because I was
Okay.
like, I'm always doing something, and I want people to know that, again, from the accident with the post concussion syndrome, I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that I started talking a lot and advocating. And I've actually, a few people have said I've saved their lives about with my book. The book was a very good help aid or certain symptoms they would have, and they didn't know they had a concussion. And the best thing I told them to do was to go to the doctor, go to the neurologist, see a neurologist, tell them your symptoms, but write it down and then pass it to them, because maybe you won't remember what you just told me. And
Right.
I would follow up with them, and they would find out that they actually had concussion. Um, and so they got treated for it. And the worst thing that I thought about, and the reason why I published the book, was how millions of people, and I played sports all my life. Okay, this wasn't a sports.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
at a red light that I was hit.
Yeah.
So the regular everyday person that falls off of a bike or falls or hits something, hits their head, and they say, "Oh, I'm okay," and they rub it and they move on. They go to sleep. They don't wake up.
Mm.
That was the crowd that I was speaking to. How many
Yeah.
individuals, not the statistics on who went to the hospital, it's millions of people who have not
Never
gone to
went.
the hospital,
Yeah.
because they didn't know. How would they know? So I tried to do more advocacy around what was going on. And I felt that this book was helpful in every household. And it's not necessarily for the person going through it, because the person going through it is not going to want to read anything. They're instructed not to. You need to rest your brain um,
Yeah.
later once you heal. But it was really about, you know, having the information. It was about my experiences of and what my family kind of experienced. So everyone's experience is different, but
Mm-hmm.
this is how I came about. Now, at the time, the Franz Experience, and we're going to fast forward, my arm is injured. I can't write another PowerPoint presentation to put the business out there. I can no longer do that. And
Yeah. Physically, you couldn't do that any longer, but
Mhm.
but at this point, you're starting to kind of have these experiences kind of popping into your head in different spaces in terms of all the things that you've gone through, and
Yeah,
now you're starting to feel those experiences kind of come together in some way.
yeah. So, you know, at that point in time, I had a friend. I said, "Well, this is what I want to do. I want to be like Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. But I love talking to people. I love interviewing
Mm-hmm.
people. And this is partially what I do on the Friends Experience. But I couldn't write a thing. And so one of my friends said, "Well, use your voice."
Right.
That was a huge turning point for me in my life, because, again, I'm a writer. I'm writing books
Mm-hmm.
and I can't write a thing. I work, I use my hands a lot. I can't do a thing. And so I've had my first segment of the show at my apartment, and
Mm-hmm.
I literally kept my arm out of the set. Like when I was videoing and interviewing individuals, my arm was literally wrapped up. It was still bandaged. It was still healing. I was still in pain. I have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
But I started doing that and I loved it. I loved it.
So, so when you formed the friends experience,
Mhm.
obviously you're healing, but in
Mhm.
terms of how you wanted to frame the friends experience, it from what I can see from the outside looking in, is you having conversations with outstanding people like yourself
Mhm.
and just sharing stories. So how did you come to that point in terms of how you wanted to frame the friends experience?
Okay. So the France Experience was about motivating, uplifting, inspiring individuals. And I think the first part about it was knowing that you can overcome a traumatic experience. For
Mm-hmm.
myself, I had gone through several
Yeah.
and I was still doing well. And at the time, I called myself a motivational survivor.
Mhm.
Now I say I'm living, because I'm not just a survivor. I'm living. I've evolved into a space where I'm living. I'm not just surviving.
Yeah.
And, but at the time, I felt that everything that had happened in my life had led me to that point of being in the having the Franz experience. The Franz experience and my passions for motivating individuals to keep going. My
Mhm.
journey to recovering, like after the injury, um, with the concussion. Since then, I had run, and the surgery on the leg. Since then, I had run a few, marathons. I actually did a Spartans race, um, right up to where I injured my arm.
Mhm.
So I was on this journey with bumped on course, which I call Bach, was one of the things that I also created in the
Mhm.
space of physical wellness, mental and physical, spiritual wellness.
Right.
And so when I would interview people, it wasn't like I was just looking for people. It was like these particular individuals showed up in my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
their stories, as impeccable as they were, I was like, I had to have them on the show,
Right.
because, Matichu Nyati, he went through apartheid.
Mhm.
And, he's about bridging gaps, expanding platforms, having people work together. And
Yeah.
a lot of his story is about just bringing people together in uniformity. And where apartheid was about that separation piece.
Mhm.
Talked about growing up in his family and what that was like. Here you have this top CEO leader in South Africa experiencing how he felt alone in his own household
Yeah.
amongst his siblings, and how he wanted to bridge that gap, not just within his own family, but within communities, within corporations. And
Right.
that was, hearing that story, I was all about sharing people's stories and hoping that those who were receiving that on the other end, that were watching these interviews, were feeling motivated and inspired to continue on. I
Right. Right.
people who were survivors of breast cancer. Um, it really depended on the specifics of the individual. And
Mhm.
I felt like this story was, you know, amazing. And I wanted people to know about it, how they overcame and became successful. Walter Staub, he's 15-time, probably more than that now, Emmy Award winner,
Mhm.
chef of A Taste of History, and his story, about growing up. And he's very successful. It just, I wanted people to know that you can still be successful. And if it isn't that you hear these words from me and you need to hear it from someone else with maybe whom you think has more accolades, then so be it. However it comes
Yeah.
across. But there's also value in hearing from the everyday, day-to-day person who's surviving breast cancer. Nobody struggles are greater or different than any others. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of their experience. And so my passion was about healing and motivating people. And I found out people weren't necessarily responding online to some of the posts, but they were messaging me, and
Okay.
they were calling
Okay.
me, telling me how inspiring I was to them. And that helped me. That helped me see that there was a need,
That there
that
was value.
there was value in what I was putting forward. And no matter what, I just want people to be okay. And
Yeah.
there's a lot that we suffer from, but we still have our day to day. We still have to keep going on.
Got to
And
keep on pushing.
I want
Got
people
to
to know
keep.
that they're not alone,
Mhm.
not alone in this. And if I'm being vulnerable and sharing that, it's because I want somebody else to heal. I want somebody to know that they're not alone. That
No, and believing in the possibilities, which is, I want your take on a slogan of yours, Mission Possible.
okay.
Yeah,
So that's
talk to me
West
about
Coast
that.
stuff. Okay, so now we're in the West Coast. Okay,
All
so
right.
I've been out here now a little going on a year. I moved I actually left the finance space. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I dove into, I wanted to change at this point. And it was like my body was aching for the change. My body wanted the Franz experience. My mind, my
Mm-hmm.
soul, everything about me was the Franz experience. And there was something else that I wanted to do. And I've always wanted to fly. I've always loved aviation. And so I'll just share this for the safety and security of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
industries that I decided to go into aviation. And I love it.
Okay.
And I say, if we could add up the time in a year, I've probably traveled around the world at least 3 times in 1 year.
Well, that's what's
So
up.
and I talk to people about like how long, how far they've gone and all these things. I've gotten to travel to a lot of these, different cities, experience foods and all these different things. And I actually just recently, I want to say a few months ago, did a discovery flight myself, and flying my own plane.
All
And
right.
it's so amazing. I'm just like, wow, I'm doing this. I'm living.
Yeah.
And all these things have been a part of the Franz experience. It's been my life. It's been a journey. It's been a story, you know.
Yeah.
And I want people to know that they have their experiences. And so Mission Possible came about when I realized one day I was walking past a dog and I didn't faint.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually seeming okay.
Mm-hmm.
With what I do, you have to be able to use your hands. You have to, you can't have these different ailments. And when I realized
Yeah.
how far I had come and that I was on the other side of the trauma, I was
Yeah.
now getting back up my to where I wanted to be. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't say, back to myself. I say because I feel that I'm better now. I feel that
Mm-hmm.
I'm different now. All my new ailments, my aches, my scars, my battle wounds, whatever it is, I'm not that same person. You know, I'm evolving into something else, someone else. And,
Mm-hmm.
still having, the natures about me, the good natures about me. But when I thought about next level, high level, okay, I've been a VP in finance, that was my career in finance. I'm doing my business. I just, I actually wrote a children's book with my daughter. That's published. It's called Cloud Tales.
Okay.
And she was the illustrator. I have something that I've done that's public with my daughter. That's a bond that'll never be broken. I feel that, I was able to get to most of my son's football games this year,
Mm-hmm.
and he's graduating. I mean, I'm living. And because there was a point where I was so busy healing and trying to get better and struggling, trying to put everything together and so I can even just run again. Okay.
Right.
So I could, pick up my own suitcases and travel or whatever it is I'm doing, that I'm away from being on crutches at my son's football games.
Yeah.
All these things, I'm at this point like mission is possible.
Mm-hmm.
We're always talking about it's, mission impossible, like the movie, okay, got Tom Cruise is in this Mission Impossible movie. But at the end of the day, everything is possible. Didn't he do everything? He got it done, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
when Mission Possible came about for me, I believe that it was like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
I woke up with it because I said, Bach is great. Bumped on Course is great.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people really understood that. I had to
Right.
explain that more. But it's very clear. Mission Possible is very clear. It's very much to the point
Yeah.
that mission is possible, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
And it could be a health journey. It could be starting a new business. It could be, switching careers. It could be starting family. And whatever point that we feel that we've been successful thus far,
Mm-hmm.
Mission Possible is about that space that we think, "Mm, I don't know," that unknown space.
Yeah.
It can be like, the most elite C-suite, whatever it is, you're wherever you are in your life and career, sports wise, professional, NFL, whatever it is, whatever space you're in, it's that next space where you find yourself having trouble getting over.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mission Possible is a space where I help a lot of individuals, coaching them, and there's a method that I go about in sharing Mission Possible and what that looks like for each individual, because everyone's journey is different. But a lot of times it's not me telling them exactly what steps or what to do.
Okay.
It's about them discovering. It's about them
Okay.
sharing. It's a whole process, which I do for my clients. So I do consulting as well. But
You
I
say you
work,
take them on a journey of discovery.
yes, there's a whole plan that's in place that each individual will go through, and they have to be serious about it, because that next level, it's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
It's going to be challenging, but it's not unachievable. It is definitely achievable, and I share that through my story big time, because
No,
here
that's awesome.
I go from I can't talk, I had to learn how to speak again, fully
Mm-hmm.
into my career, and I had to learn how to walk again. That's from the knee surgery. I had to go
Yeah.
through healing emotionally from, growing up, the things that I've dealt with, um, life journey, as an adult, going through all these different things, the concussion, going through, being mauled, all these things are part of my path, but I'm still a believer in helping people heal.
Yeah.
I I just feel that it's such a need, because when I was feeling at my highest of highs, I was still like this giver. But when I was feeling low, I noticed how people tend to kind of shy away. But I want
Yeah.
people to know that I'm right here. I'm not shying away. I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so if they need me, I'm here, and I'm proof.
Yeah. No, I think I'm a big believer in just believing in the possibilities. I think we're speaking the same language, just in terms of there's going to be challenges. That's a part of life. There's going to be times you fall or you fail, if you want to use that word. But there's going to be things, you talk about the next level. There's going to be things that you aspire to attain that are going to be scary, there's going to be some anxiety around. And for me, if it's humanly possible for you to do that thing, whatever it is, it's your thing. If it's humanly possible, then it's possible for you to do it. And I always say, love yourself enough to love what you do.
Mhm.
If your dreams are possible, they're possible for you. So many times we hold ourselves back because we don't believe that it's possible, or we listen to other people who tell us that it's not possible, or
Right.
maybe it's something that hasn't been done before. So it's extremely important in my mind that you just hold on to the belief of the possibility of what you can do, what you can be, what you can achieve. And in this whole realm of designing your life, I mean, it falls within all of that. And which brings me to my next question is, you've been through a lot, right?
Mhm.
From an early age, you call them ups, you call them downs. I look at them as life experiences that created Franz the experience. And in my opinion, you're living now the life that you really want. You're living a design life around the things that you want, the things that you want to accomplish, the people that you want to be around. So my question to you, Franz, is why is it important to you to just live a crafted life or the design life? I mean, you're flying. you're flying planes and you're doing all these different things, which
Well,
is far from where you came from.
yes.
You know, you come from, you know, Millersville and trauma and, you know, all the experiences that you had in terms of, you know, finance and VP and all those things. But it just feels like you're living an entirely different life at this point in this season, which you've crafted. So why is that? Why was that so important, and why is it so important for you to live a design life?
That's a good question. So when I was in the space of being a VP in finance, and I enjoyed that up until I didn't.
Okay.
And I thought this next thing that I dive into, I wanted it to be something that I enjoyed. I felt, whole and fulfilled with. And it wasn't necessarily about the money at the time because, I had a professor say to me, actually, he was actually a speaker, guest speaker, and he said, "What would you do in life for free?"
Mm-hmm.
And what I know is that I love people and I'm a big helper, and I feel that God has a plan for me. And a lot of times the course shows itself to me. And it's like I'll ask for guidance, like, what exactly am I supposed to be doing with this? And it always comes back to the Franz experience. So when I
Mm-hmm.
think of transitioning and wanting to fly, a lot of people say, life is short, nothing is guaranteed to us the next day.
Right.
But I knew that there were things in life that I always wanted to live in a warmer climate. How do
Mm-hmm.
I get there? What do I do? How do I
Right.
make that transition possible? I wanted to be able to see my son. What does that look like? How do I do it? How do I get there? And so when I entered into the space of aviation, I looked at benefits. The
Okay.
benefit, what do I get from it?
Right.
Know, I know I'm going to do the work. I know what the company is going to get from it,
Mm-hmm.
being there as I added value. But what am I going to get from it? What is the value that I want? And
Yeah.
so when I started to look at things from the perspective of what is it that I want in life, and I'm a big believer in manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, this is what I want to do. I want to do my business and I want to fly. I want to do whatever, that is what I want to do. And I stuck with that concept and the thought. And I said, well, if I'm living all the way on the West Coast, I need to be able to get to my children. I need
Right.
to, um, I want the benefit of being able to see them or get to them if I need to and not
Right.
so disconnected. Um, but I wanted the warmer weather. I was tired of the East Coast has
The
the most
snow.
amazing. Yeah, King of Prussia, Valley Forge area has some of the most beautiful landscapes, but the cold. My body is not made for that cold. So mind you, I've had knee surgery at both knees,
Right. Right. How
surgery,
about that?
and I've had the nerve damage in the right arm, which is my dominant hand.
Right.
That cold weather just doesn't agree.
Right. Right.
And
Right. Your body telling you that it's time for you to make a left coast
yeah,
switch.
I gotta change things to get to a warmer climate.
Right. Right.
And that was just something that I definitely wanted to do. And um, I'm engaged now. It was something I was like, I'll never, do it again.
Okay.
So I found this
Congratulations.
amazing person, and we were both able to transition here for work.
Okay.
And I'm loving the mountains. I've always been in Pennsylvania. I've never moved anywhere else.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity out here. And so I took it, and I felt
There you
that I
go.
took a big leap. It was unknown. I
Yeah.
know, you know, between work and I know a few people out here, but I just said, I'm going to do it. And I was
There
a
you
little
go.
nervous. And I think what got me to this point was surviving being mauled, was surviving, my childhood experiences, was surviving and
Hmm.
trusting that I'm a leader, trusting that I'm a pioneer, that I've been in so many of these spaces as a pioneer. And a pioneer space is a lonely path. It's a lonely
Hmm.
path because you're traveling the unknown.
Right.
No one else knows that path but you.
Right.
However, it doesn't have to be lonely because we know of other pioneers. The process is similar, thought processes. But I said, this is what I want to do. And I literally believe I take a leap of faith, but I said, I want to do this. And it has been an amazing journey.
No,
I've
that's what's up.
been around more animals um, just because I wanted to be comfortable. No matter how comfortable I wanted to be, I wanted that comfort around animals. They're everywhere, you know,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to feel like I was in this bubble anymore. And no matter, even though a couple years ago, I wanted to feel that then, but it didn't happen then.
Right.
It's happening now. So time, time is precious, and
Yeah.
time can heal as well.
No,
And so,
absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you need the time. I always consider time as the most valuable thing that we have. And, the thing that makes me proud is that, that you faced it, that you faced the fear, the anxiety, the trauma, instead of, staying in a space, which just doesn't serve, that light, that friend light that we talked about. So it's enjoyable just to see you on the other side of it. And then many times the traumas and the things that we go through are what make us the individuals that we are, right?
yeah.
But not only did they make us the individuals that we are, they give us the tools and experiences and an accent, our talent to motivate and inspire and encourage other people. So in a weird way, the things that we go through, the things that you have gone through, really serve your gift to
Mhm.
give to others, right? Because you started out with, I'm saving sodas for my brothers and sisters and looking out for my people, right? And that's naturally who you are. And being able to go through, to go in and come out on the other side of those traumas and the things that you've gone through have given you some more tools to serve, which is who you are at the heart. So I'm very proud of you and happy to see you on the other side. I want to play a game with you before we get ready to wrap it up. I want to play a game with you. All right, now we're not going, we can't shoot hoops or anything like that. You over there, I'm here. But I want to play a game with you. It's called Imagine If. All right.
Imagine if.
Imagine if.
Imagine if. Okay.
Imagine if. All right.
Hmm.
Imagine if you could have dinner with three historical figures, living or dead, doesn't matter. Who would they be, and what might you talk about at dinner? Maybe have some wine too. Three historical figures, whoever you choose them to be.
Okay.
And what would you guys be talking about? It could be anything.
Okay. One would be Einstein.
Okay. All right. All right.
So I'm a comedian at heart. So,
Okay.
you know, my curiosity would be, I could just see myself saying something like, "What are you doing here sitting in the dark?" But you know, like I could just, if I was to be able to sit down, I'd want to know like what their childhood was like, you know.
Okay. So Einstein. All right.
Um,
Two more.
say number two, hmm. Well, I would say uh historical, she's still out there. I would say Oprah, but a lot of her story is very, it's kind of public, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's been very open about her life experience. But so I won't say Oprah. Um,
Well, this is your list, so you can say who you want.
yeah. So historical figures. Oh my gosh.
And historical in your mind, and
Okay.
in your
So
mind.
um, I would want to sit with my grandpop again.
Okay. All right.
Um, we talked a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I would ask him more about, you know, how he felt as a person
Mm.
growing up, even as an adult,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
often know people as parents or titles of whatever category or space they're in, but not so much as the person.
Not just the person. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so we got Einstein. I call my grandfather Pop Pop, so I don't know what you call him. Your grandfather, but okay. So we got Einstein. We got Pop Pop. Who else is sitting down with dinner for
Okay.
dinner?
So this one would be, I can only have three.
You can
No.
have no. You can have whoever you want. This is your dinner.
Okay. I would say that last person would be probably Rosa Parks.
Okay.
Um, I would just want to know, I think some people had certain strengths about them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would want to know, like, what was going through her mind when she decided she was going to make that move.
Yeah.
Um, she was going to do that. Like, what? Because she knew the risks.
Right. Right. She
She knew
knows.
um, the potential outcomes, as it was very clear. And I think that somehow that could also give me, it's all these pieces of puzzles, right? You know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
about what people are thinking when they're right before they're about to do something magnificent,
Yeah.
um, but also risky and completely like a game changer,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
That'd be awesome. It'd be an awesome dinner, that's for sure. You guys
Would you
drinking wine
all
during
be
that?
at the table together? Could that
Say
be a
again?
thing? Could they all be at the table together? No time zones and all that stuff is good, but
Oh yeah, no, this is your dinner. This is your select few at your dinner. So you got friends, Pop Pop,
you know
Einstein,
what?
and Rosa Park having dinner.
I
Maybe
would want
some
them to
water
be
and wine.
I would want them to be separate because I
Oh,
need
separate dinners. Okay.
yeah, I would need my time with each one of them. And
Okay.
I don't want to take away from one another,
You
because
need
my
some
pop
one
pop's
on
gonna say, I'm blood here. I don't
one.
Einstein's gotta say. I don't want to hear what Rosa. We already know what happened with Rosa.
Right,
So
right, right.
you know,
Okay.
he would expect me to give him all of my time.
All
So
right. Yes, he deserves it. Okay. All right. Now imagine if, and I know you spoke at the Women's Economic Forum, I believe in 2015, I believe. So imagine if you had the ear of all the young women in the world, 13 to 23 years old, and you only had 5 minutes to speak to these women. What would that message be about?
mm, it would be about learning yourself. It would be about self love. It would be about your journey. What is it that you want to do at this point in time in your life? Where do you see yourself in the next few years? And whatever that space is, surround yourself with individuals that are in those spaces that you want to be involved in. Your circle is just as powerful as you are, and it
Mhm.
adds value. So make sure that those individuals that kind of give you a pessimistic view, there's things you can do with some of those, problem solving skills. You can take something pessimistic and turn it into an idea, but stick yourselves around those who are very optimistic, very positive, uplifting individuals, and you'll know them. They'll show themselves to you, but manifest what it is that you want to do. Write it down, write a plan, and start now. And if you
Mm.
want to do it, you have to put forth the efforts, because if you don't have a plan, there's always someone else waiting to put a plan in for you. Last thing you want to do is regret not trying something for yourself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When we get, I have something I want to share with you, but I don't want to share it here. This is something for everyone later. Okay, last thing. Imagine if you could go back in time and give your younger self advice about how to design your life. What would that advice be for the young Franz?
Well, first I'd start back with basketball,
Mm.
and I would tell her, you know, if you really love basketball, try out for the basketball team at school,
Hmm.
try out, and play for school. That could have been a different path for myself. So that's one thing I probably would have told myself. Um, I think it's kind of hard to go back and see what I would have actually said to my younger self, because coming through what I came through, I thought I did a pretty decent, okay job of what I could do, um, of what I was given.
Hmm.
But looking back, I think that I wanted to have of more time to really get to know me
Hmm.
as an individual, not out of fear, or but out of wanting more, wanting to be able to explore more,
Yeah.
but live a life as a child with exploring, not given a certain aspect of life that was traumatizing. So, you feel kind of limited in your movements,
Hmm.
um, as a child that's dealing with those types of things. You grow up fast. You have to learn
Yeah.
to grow up fast. And I wish I could relieve my mind of those things more at that time,
Mm.
and be able to really enjoy a childhood.
Being a kid. Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like even giving yourself permission to to explore,
Yeah.
permission to reflect on the things that you enjoy, and that's a huge part of the message that I have for people, is especially young people, is to explore, to self-reflect, to look within in terms of what is it that you enjoy. Not what does daddy like, what does mommy like, what is uncle, what is it that you enjoy. And many times, that self-reflection is not happening early enough in life,
Yeah.
and we find ourselves on a path that has been designed for us, versus us, kind of figuring out what it is that we enjoy and allowing that to be our GPS through life. So that's very, very interesting. So I just have a couple more questions for you. So imagine, and this is not necessarily imagine if, but if there's someone that's at the beginning of their journey, and they have the desire to design their life, uh, what is your advice to them in terms of where they begin that process? And I think we might probably talked about it a little bit already, but they're at the beginning. Where do you think they should start?
I think they should start where I was also given some advice. What would you do for free? And
Mm-hmm.
you can truly find your passions, I believe, in that space of thought. um, because I find it hard sometimes to, you know, send a bill out to individuals in a space where it's my passion. I believe I'm supposed to help people. So how do I charge for that? So there was a struggle with that, turning passions to profit. But uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it, you figure it out because I mean, doctors love saving lives, but there's a hefty bill that comes with that too. So, you
Right.
know, I think people should start with learning what it is that they like to do for free first.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down. It could be in a tablet, a notebook, or whatever the case may be. Um, Write down maybe three focal points as to what do they want to get out of that. Why do they feel that that is the thing, the driving force or the start to their path or their journey, um,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it's in career, health, whatever area or space they're in. Um, Write down three things that speaks to and gives you I guess, a courage or permission to
Mm-hmm.
say, this is what I really want to do. Kind of narrow it down and
Okay.
sit with yourself. Sit with yourself. Think about it. You know, be careful who you, at an early stage, I say be careful who you speak to about it because you have those who are pessimistic and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they can stop you from creating one of the most amazing things in the life, you know, or you know who you can talk to.
Yeah.
Yourself with individuals that would be optimistic about your journey and not just somebody to listen to, maybe some mentors going on there, those individuals
Mm-hmm.
who are similar to kind of in that space or you can kind of bounce ideas off of or get some feedback, some constructive feedback, um, and what that actually looks like. Start to research it, start to Google, start to create a plan for yourself. And I say that's a good start.
Okay. All right. So, and the last, well, one of the last questions I have, just a couple more, is you got somebody who is they have a dream, something that they're in love with, but they're afraid. There's definitely fear there, right? But then they also don't have people that support them and that really believe that they can get it done. What do you tell that person that's in love with the dream, but they're afraid and they have no support?
Call me.
There you
Well,
go.
that's one thing you can do. Um, but I share that I too was afraid. There's still some
Hmm.
things that I'm nervous about, um, you know, but we don't know that space. What I'm more afraid of is not doing it.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, like, do you want to look back on this and not have tried it?
Hmm.
Will you feel? And most of these individuals are very bright individuals. I mean, super smart,
Hmm.
and um, they can do it. But the fear base kicks in because you got, salaries that you're receiving from working for somebody else. Now you got to create all these things yourself. I say you can use that as a tool. It's not really that much different from when you're working for somebody and it's your first day at the office and you don't want to mess up, right?
Hmm.
They may have systems and things already in place, but if you have a passion, and I don't care how long you do that, but if you really don't have a passion, it may fall apart because you're not really into it. What you're into
Yeah.
and your passion is still going to come around at some point. And so it's going to conflict. And what you can do is you can either start it now, you know, and have years to cultivate to make it, you know, a Fortune 500 company, you know, or
Hmm.
you can wait later to still think of it every day And it can haunt you like, I wanted to do this, and you'll still talk about it. But do you really want to be that person? That's something with me. Like I said, I don't want to be that person that, I have a fear of not trying something that I wanted to do
Yeah.
and leaving this world not putting myself to the challenge. That's the
There you
bigger
go.
fear.
There you go. Awesome. Well, look, friends, this has been an outstanding conversation. Do you have any new projects you want to? We talked about some, and then how can people get in contact with you?
Well, so I have a couple. I've always got something going on. We are
Hmm.
evolving, always
Yes,
evolving.
the light is back on.
So I have, like, you can follow me. People can follow me at www.thefranz experience.life, where we believe you were definitely bumped on course and the mission is possible.
Mhm.
I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, the Franz Experience, but people can subscribe to my website, thefranzexperience.life, and reach out to me. My phone number's on there. The address, we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, but that means nothing virtually. I'm global, so you can reach out to me. We have several platforms which we can communicate, but people can reach me there. My phone numbers, the business line is also on there. Also on social media, if you're a big social media person, Instagram, the Franz Experience, um, TikTok, Facebook. I'm on a lot of platforms, um, but you can reach me anywhere on those several different social media platforms, or IoTs, Internet of Things, as I call it.
There
But
you go.
um, definitely, I would love to hear from anyone that has questions, or just want to learn how to go about the course and your process, and how to accept it and learn your new norms, no matter what they are, and how to adapt. And
There it is. There it is. Listen, um, first of all, guys, make sure you go out, check out the book, Bumped. I know there's going to be a new version of it.
yeah,
We got a new book out, A
it's called
Poet's Song.
Song.
Make sure you grab that as well. And friends, the final question I have for you for today is that there's always, people that have designed and crafted their lives, right?
Mhm.
They all typically know someone that has done or has lived or are living a designed and crafted life. I want you to think of one name, one person that you believe has crafted or designed a beautiful life, right? But before you give me that name, it needs to be someone that you're willing to help us get on the show so they can share their story with us. Is there anyone that comes to mind?
Hmm. There are quite a few people
Okay.
that I know of, and let me think. Let me think. Now, the part about getting them on the show, um, I can't commit. We could
We
always
get we
have
believe in pressure. We
dialogue.
believe in peer pressure. No, I'm just playing.
But um, I've come across in my lifetime many individuals who have crafted, whom I think have crafted an amazing life,
So,
and and it doesn't always mean professionally in
mhm,
their career space, but just in their life,
100%.
um, per se. And I'd want to be biased, but I have a few people, but I know they probably wouldn't come on the show because
That's all right.
they're very
Private.
yes, they're very private. But so there's quite a few names in that space where people are private and they wouldn't do it, but I'm still grateful for what they do, um, and how they've crafted their lives. But I would say maybe it's been someone that I actually interviewed before
Okay.
on my podcast. There's so many people I could actually name.
Well, you hold it. You hold the thought,
How about,
and
yeah, how about
yeah,
we circle back?
yeah. No, we'll circle back to it because you've got a
Mhm,
list. So
I
we'll circle
do.
back to it for sure. But I just want to just say thank you first of all for just offering and gifting me some of your time. It's been a
Mhm.
beautiful experience just hanging out with you
You.
and just reconnecting and chatting and just hearing about your story and your journey and just some of the jewels and things that you dropped on us. It means a lot. So I just thank you so much. I really,
It's
really appreciate you.
it's been a pleasure, and thank you for allowing me to share on your platform. I'm hopeful that people can. This is like a whole. One of my favorite movies, Ten Commandments. It's like part one, part two, side A, side B. You know,
Hey, it's
but
it's it's an experience.
it is an experience, and I'm very grateful that you asked me to be on the show. I'm honored that you would want me to speak, and I'm hopeful that the message about the mission being possible and your platform expands and reaches so many individuals. I know you work a lot with the youth, and I'm looking forward to you being on my show, and we'll we'll
Well,
we'll talk and coordinate that off camera. But I'm definitely a believer in what it is that you do, and so I felt compelled that we would come together and do this live. So
awesome.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Hold on. Absolutely. Wow. Another exciting conversation, another just enlightening moment. And this the word that comes to me right now is experience because that was a beautiful experience. And just one of the things I think is really important for you is to just remember that it's possible. Franz talked about the mission is impossible, and I talk to you guys all the time about believing in the possibilities of what you can do, what you can be, and what you can accomplish, despite what people may think. And I believe that what people think about you and what people believe that you can do is none of your business. Your business is to believe in yourself and walk into your purpose with power as you design your life. So just never forget that it is possible. Never stop believing, never stop taking those steps forward as you move towards your purpose, which is powerful. So, another great episode. I am so thankful for Franz and our time together. I'm thankful for you. And remember, you are a champion. Believe it. Design your life. Peace. See y'all next week.
You gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. Feeling myself, you used to color so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Align your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet. Yeah, you gotta dream it, like you mean it. Embrace the vision, no need to conceal it. Vision masterpiece, the color so bright. Aim for the stars, reach new heights. Design your life, don't let it design you. Chase your dreams, make them all come true. Dance to the rhythm, move with the beat. You're the creator, get up on your feet.